Hello and welcome to Mindset Kitchen, a show where I invite inspirational people to share their 3 key mindset messages, all while I'm cooking a delicious meal. Today I have a pleasure of having Paul over here. Thank you so much for being here.
It's a total and real pleasure.
Hopefully you will be feeling the same at the end of the show.
I'm sure I will, looking at what's happening already.
So I've asked Paul what would be his 3 favorite dishes, and I also asked him if he would like to try something new. He has chosen Lithuanian. Ooh.
Just gone for it. Gone for it. Why not?
Risky.
That's me all over, as you'll discover. Yeah, that's me.
I really appreciate that. And I have a huge pleasure to actually cook Lithuanian to you. It's not a cuisine that you get to see often on the streets of London, popping in to try Lithuanian food. So
I don't ever remember any of my friends saying, let's go out for a Lithuanian.
it's probably not going to be for a while, but you can say, let's go out to Lithuanian chef's house. She will cook us Lithuanian food.
Well, that's a very nice thing. I'm very pleased to hear that.
So also, I've served Paul some white wine, Chablis. Now, it was a hard but not hard choice, because in Lithuania we don't really have a tradition of drinking wine. Now it's big, but when I was growing up it was vodka.
Vodka, yes. Well, I think that's a bit hardcore.
Yeah, so I thought pairing with vodka probably is not a good idea.
No.
So I chose Chablis because it's lovely dry white.
Beautiful, civilized wine.
Exactly, and it goes really well with pastries, it goes with quiche and things like that. And today I'm making a traditional Lithuanian pastry called chebureka.
Chebureka.
That's not bad pronunciation at all.
Yeah, you see it. It's just there. It's been there waiting. My Lithuanian.
It's just coming out now.
Yeah.
For Paul, I've also pre-cooked Lithuanian bread, which is traditional Lithuanian kind of malt rye bread. You don't get that in any British supermarkets. It's only in either Polish, Lithuanian, Russian shops. It's quite dark. You fry that and you rub it with garlic, salt, and you serve that with cheese sauce.
Wow.
I would love you to try.
Oh gosh,
it's
yes,
nice
I'm
and
gonna
warm.
I'm going to get my napkin out and everything.
I've left the cutlery there out of politeness, but you won't need the cutlery today, just so you know. It's all with fingers.
Oh.
It's all quite relaxed.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh,
Let me
creamy,
know.
lovely creamy cheesy sauce.
All my foreign friends who have tried this at various birthday parties that I held, they loved it.
Oh, it's great.
This is good, yeah. So in Lithuania we have this with beer.
I can see that.
Cuts through. And the pastry today we have is going to be made with meat, because you can do different fillings, but majority of the times is the meat.
Okay.
Today's meat I've used is pork and turkey. I like mixing the different meats. Sometimes I like with veal and turkey, but I think pork and turkey goes really nicely. So what I've done here with the meat already, I've put some fried onions in there, so I lightly fry them so they soften. Meat and then salt and pepper. Simple as that.
Okay.
I love that it's what you see is really what you get. It's not too many ingredients in here.
And the meat's speaking for itself.
I hope everything will speak for itself today.
Yes.
But anyway, we're here also. Thank you. Keep trying, keep eating. That's all for you. So don't be shy. Leave some space for the other type of pastry.
Okay.
Paul has brought some great messages to share with you today. But before we go into the messages, I would like Paul to introduce yourself a little bit and tell everyone, why are you here? Who are you?
Who the hell am I? Well, it's always a good question to ask a writer. I'm really a writer. I spent my life as a creative writer. Briefly, when I left university, I was an actor for a bit, and then I realised that I was the kind of person who wanted to change all the lines of all the plays I was in if I didn't think they were good enough, and that doesn't really work when you do it in the middle of the play. And I hadn't quite told all the other actors that's what I was doing. So the last director I ever got was a guy, an absolute nobody called Sam Mendes, who went on to win an Oscar for American Beauty and everything like that. Yeah, and he directed me in this play. And he said to me, after I'd changed the lines quite a lot one night, he said, Paul, I think, have you thought about being a writer? So that's what I have become a writer. I spent a lot of time writing, mostly comedy, but comedy drama and sometimes just pure dramas for television mainly. A bit of film, try to make films. Everybody wants to make a film. Everyone wants to break their souls on the rocks of trying to make a film in this country. So I've done that, slaved away at films for years and years, and a bit of radio drama as well, but mostly TV and a lot of comedy drama and on the BBC and ITV. A lot of kids drama, and the one film I did work on was the Spice Girls movie years ago,
really?
which was a wonderful, wonderfully nuts thing to do. I mean, we didn't do it for the money; we just did it for fun, and it was an amazing experience. It was like being with the Beatles at the height of their fame. It was really, really nuts.
Incredible.
So that was fun. So I've had a very interesting creative life. Recently, I've written a novel. Which is just going out to publishers right now. Well, I'll just, about now and we'll see what happens. And so doing that. And I also work, lately I've started working with professional speakers and people in the business world, professional business leaders, trying to refine their speaking and find the stories and the humour and the humanity, really, in what they're saying, because so much business speaking can sound like robots talking to each other, and trying to find and help people be themselves, really, when they speak, and therefore land their messages even more effectively than if they tried not to be themselves, which so many of them end up in that kind of trap, really. So I just try to free people to be themselves and enjoy themselves, and like, because I believe that the more human like you can sound, the more you talk to other people, the more people listen to you. So I've been doing that for the last year or two, and it's been great, and it's been really fun, really meeting some fantastic, interesting people, and enjoying that too, as well as the creative life. So creative life, bit of business life. I've started doing masterclasses in comedy at the Comedy Store in London for business speakers sometimes, but also for people who want to just sit there and go, well, I want to write a sitcom or I want to write a funny film. Where do I start? Yes. So I'm doing a new masterclass for that, and it's all called Find Your Funny, and it's all on the Comedy Store in London, which is a brilliant venue for it, because it's like doing a thing on gambling in Vegas somewhere. You know, I mean, it really is the real HQ of comedy, and you can feel the laughs kind of coming through the walls, and it just feels really special to do these things there. People love it, and it's a really entertaining, fun way to learn something for a morning and get yourself started on a creative project. So I love helping other people with their creative projects too, as well as doing them myself. I'm a bit of an unusual writer in that way, because a lot of comedy writers are quite secretive, and so they just talk to themselves, really. They don't really like sharing their great secrets, but I don't mind. I'll help anybody, because I think everyone should be creative. Everyone should find that bit of themselves and give themselves. If you have that urge, you have that itch. You know, I've always thought of myself as being funny. I've said some funny things. Just explore it. Just explore it. You don't think of yourself as funny. I think you're quite funny. You've said funny things to me. So I think there's lots of ways of being funny. You can be outrageously funny and very obviously funny. You can just be quietly, ironically funny. My wife is Scottish. She's quite quiet and controlled. She's devastatingly funny, but she doesn't think of herself in that way, and she doesn't try and hold the centre stage always, but she just says the funniest things. And we all do that. I think most people in their lives say funny things. Most people sort of say, well, I'm not funny. Well, I think your friends would disagree, your family would disagree. Over your year, you are going to have said lots of funny things. And so it's just kind of gathering those leaves and those beautiful things back to yourself and going, well, this is who I am and this is how I express myself in the world. So I think whether it's speaking, whether it's writing, whether it's, being funny or going on stage or, taking a show to Edinburgh or whatever, or writing a funny novel, people have all these all this potential within them. And I get a lot of pleasure out of helping people find that and begin to explore how to have fun with it.
It's incredible. Thank you for sharing that, Paul, because I think your career has been so colorful, as you said, and so varied and interesting.
Yeah. It's hard to describe sometimes because there's so loads of different things happening.
And you want to say that angle and mention that angle, but I think where you are now is such a great place to be, to share your experience and pull out that funny and humor out of people, because as you said, it just made me think whilst you were talking, we all can be funny. We all human. So it means if you're laughing from something, then you find something funny. That means you have funny in you as well. And when people say I'm not funny, but then you laugh at something that's funny, it means you can be funny. It's just finding that within you. And I think
and allowing yourself to be that in places where you normally wouldn't, like work. You think work's serious.
Yes.
But actually, and I think that serious is where you're more likely to need comedy. I mean, I'm Irish, an Irish family. So go to an Irish funeral and however sad the occasion, there will be laughter. And in a way, the sadder the occasion, the more likely to have laughter, because that's life. Life is full of tears and laughs, joy and sadness, and these things are all part of us. And for some reason, people have been encouraged in the recent past to kind of edit out a huge part of themselves, you know, which is their natural, spontaneous warmth and humour and connection. And actually, that's not a good idea for anyone. It's certainly not a good idea for businesses, because businesses need to connect with people. They need people connecting with their customers and with their competitors and with the market and everything. So connection is what comes from laughter and warmth, isn't it? So
I completely agree.
That feels kind of the way that things are going. It's a good positive direction that people now, especially younger people, are more relaxed about all that stuff, and they want to be themselves at work. They don't want this divide, do they, between their working self and their private self. They want to be their full selves at all times, and I think there's a lot in that. I think there's a lot that new generation is teaching some of the older generations about authenticity and a full life and living your best life. And and you spend a lot of time at work. Yeah. People spend a lot of time at work. Why would you want to? It's like sleeping on a terrible bed. Why would you want to sleep on a terrible bed if you're doing it 8 hours every day? Yeah. You want to make it as good as possible. So I think that feels like a very fruitful and exciting and actually very worthwhile place to be. You know, like you're helping, your mindset thing is about encouraging people to think in their best possible way to live their best lives. It's the same thing. It's the same journey.
Yeah, and exactly. And I want to invite different people, different inspirational people like yourself who brings different angles. And it's almost like if you watch the show for a year, you will see there are angles from career, business, sports, software skills. It just goes round and round into this huge, actually, we all can possess all of this. Yeah. And many times we do need help from someone else. And I remember meeting you the first time when you said that you actually worked in written funny dramas. I was so much looking forward to having a laugh with you, and and that breaks the ice literally like this. And I think when I network as well, if I find something funny, I share with people, and it broke the ice instantly. And I was like, I feel like I know you now for much longer than it would take me an hour talking to you without any humor. Yeah, yeah. Within 5 minutes, everyone laughing.
Because humor is a shared truth. Often we laugh at something that we see that the surface is broken. The president has a bit of toilet paper hanging out of his shoe, and they're walking.
I would love to see that. I would love to see that.
It will happen, you know what I mean? Yeah. So that's and then we all share a laugh, and we can see that beneath all the grandeur of life, there is the real person, and that's the real human thing, is that we all screw up and make little mistakes.
We all go to the toilet.
We all go to the toilet. Yeah. We all can be presidents. Oh no, that's slightly more difficult.
It's a different angle. Let's talk about it next time. Okay, so I'm going to...
I'm going to have a little more of this cheese.
Yeah. Please keep having it. This is all for you. I'm going to introduce the first message that Paul brought, and I absolutely love this one. I love it because it's a skill at the same time you can develop if you have the awareness. And the way to get awareness is if someone tells you. So Paul has brought the first message, don't be boring. Paul, don't be boring today, please.
No, I really will try not to be boring. Try not to be boring. I think everyone tries not to be boring in life, but when it comes to creativity, boring is a choice sometimes. It just depends how adventurous you want to be. And sometimes being boring is obviously looks like the safe route, and it's sort of the way that you're encouraged to be. But actually, when it comes to creativity, it never works for you. It never works. When you take the obvious route, the route that's been very well travelled, it not only doesn't work for the audience, it doesn't work for you. It doesn't work for you because you feel like you're wearing secondhand goods. There's no excitement in it. There's no adventure. And I think creativity should always be an adventure. So if you're starting out on a creative project, the best thing is not to do the obvious thing. Try not to do cliches. Try not to use cliched characters. Try not to do the same old story that you saw on the television last week, thinking, oh, that's what a story is. If I'm doing a TV show, I've got to have a grizzled, aging cop who's had 3 marriages and doesn't get on very well with their bosses. I mean, you can write the cliches. We all know all the cliches of every TV drama, and sadly, for some bizarre reason, the people who make TV or run TV stations put these very cliched dramas on all the time.
And then people do watch.
And people do watch, but then there's nothing else on, so of course they watch.
Yeah.
But, it's much more interesting to be original, for example, when Inspector Morse came along, I don't know.
Yeah.
He really shook it up because not only were the Inspector Morse things 2 hours long, he was grumpy, he was a near alcoholic, and he loved classical music. And he wasn't right all the time. And so they introduced lots of newness and freshness into the formula, which at that time was very original. And that made it massively popular, because they weren't being boring in the way that they chose to approach this, the bog standard police thing. And with comedy, you always have to be fresh and original, because there's nothing more depressing than watching a comedy, like Porky's 12 or, Police Academy 23 or something like that. When it's like an old punch bag that the life has been punched out of it. Oh, God, everyone's treading water. And comedy is great because it's always, I always think of comedy like a salad, that some tragedies can be like an old stew that's been left on for 10 hours. And yes, all the meat falls off the bone and it's very, very heavy and hearty and deep and warming in some ways. But a comedy is a fresh, lovely thing that's served that there's nothing nicer than having a salad that you've never had before, isn't it? You don't want to have the same boring salad every week. You want to have a new salad, don't you?
Yeah.
And you think, gosh, those ingredients went together, and they do. And you've had a bit of sliced turnip in it, and so what I've always loved about comedy, as opposed to some of the more serious art forms, is the way that it absolutely needs to be reinvented. It can't be boring and just retread the old things. You have to find new angles. You have to put women in the lead. You have to put children in the lead. You have to do the unexpected the whole time, because if the audience is expecting it, they're ahead of you, and it's like someone telling you a joke you've heard before, isn't it? Yes. And there's no pleasure in someone telling you a joke you've heard before, because you know what's coming.
Yeah.
And whereas with so in that sense, comedy, you have to be new. You have to have the surprise. You have to have the ending, the twist that they weren't expecting. You have to have new people, and that's what I've always loved. That's my mindset about one of my mindsets about creativity is don't do the thing that someone else did. Even if it's in the same genre, just reinvent it, completely turn it on its head. Whenever you get the chance, turn it upside down and side to side, and then see what you've got. And I go, am I excited about that? Am I more excited about that than what was there before? So I think that's a mindset for me of novel, of finding something new and exciting and fresh.
So Paul, when you say don't be boring, how does one knows that they are boring?
Well, that's a good question. I think you know pretty quickly in comedy from your audience.
Well, if you are in the theatre, nobody's laughing.
If
yes.
nobody's laughing,
but if you are, because this could be applicable anywhere, not people on the TV or in the theatres. It's for people in general life. Don't be boring, you know.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that my partner, you know, liked me even more because I'm not a boring person.
Yeah.
Friends like me even more because they're not bored with me. I'm not boring.
Because they don't quite know what to expect in the nicest possible way. That you've got a lot of things in your life, and you're not sure which bits of you you're going to see that day, and which bits you're going to be interested in. And that again is just allowing yourself the freedom, in a way, to be yourself in all the complexity, isn't it?
Exactly. So I was going to say, by not being boring, it doesn't mean you have to be funny. It means
no, not
you
at all. That's my lens. That's my way.
Your only lens. Actually, by not being boring is by probably being open and authentic.
Authentic, yeah. And open, and this probably touches on some of the other things, you know, open to new experiences and being curious, you know.
Yeah.
A boring person is someone who tells you things all the time, which you know already. And a curious person is someone who just says, just ask questions and just wants to join you in finding the answers.
Yes,
and
that's very true.
And you know, there's nothing worse than that elderly relative who thinks they know it all, who sits you down and gives you the 12 truths of life, you know. And bless them, maybe some of them mean well, but a lot of them, you know, they do, and they're handing out their long fought for wisdom. But actually, everyone needs to find their own wisdom and find their own things, and they find their own things by constantly asking questions, don't they?
Yeah.
And not being boring is about finding life interesting, thinking that you haven't cracked it, that you're not the expert, you're not the coach, you know, that today you're going to learn 2 new things or 3 new things. You're going to meet someone who's going to tell you something you knew nothing about. I mean, that's what I think kept, you know, the Queen, who had to meet millions and millions of people. Anyone who meets millions and millions of people, they get very, very good at asking unusual questions. Because if they ask the same question, they're going to get the same answer.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly, the same experience.
It's the same experience, and that's going to become very dull and crushing. Whereas actually, if you ask unusual questions of people, and ask questions that you're actually interested in, you'll find that you'll open up something new, won't you? When people ask you unexpected questions, you go with them, don't you? And it's exciting, and
you have to dig
excited.
deeper.
Yeah. So it's like there's nothing worse than going to a party and someone says, "So what do you do?"
Oh yes.
I mean, that is the worst question to ask anybody. And you know, years ago I joined a cricket club, and it was full of people from all kinds of walks of life. And because I worked in television at the time, you know, people would then ask questions, and who or what famous people have you know, what fame, and you'd have to tell us. They want you to tell the same stories.
Yeah.
These guys, there were taxi drivers, there was a tax account, you know, all kinds of unusual people I would never meet, but we played cricket together. 2.5 years in, someone said, "What do you do for a living?" It took them 2.5 years to ask that question.
Yeah. And
I think that's kind of one of the absolute keys of, you know, Christmas coming up and all the party seasons and the birthdays and things, whatever the time of year, don't be boring. Don't ask people what they do as the first thing. You can find it out later.
Oh yeah,
but
you will, right? Because you will be in touch with that person, and you'll find out.
If you've hit a spark off, then you can find out later on what they do. If you're depending on that, you know.
So Paul, I can definitely say you weren't boring today in choosing the Lithuanian dish. Because you did not go for steak or anything else that, you know, one of my favorite meals actually is steak, which is fine to go with steak, but you wasn't boring, you chose Lithuanian, you took a risk.
I took a risk. Well, because again, I'm curious. I've never had Lithuanian food, really. And
so this is just the beginning, you know.
This is amazing.
I'm sure I will invite you on many more shows where I will be able to open the repertoire of Lithuanian dishes. So that just brings me quickly on to explain what I'm doing here. So this is cottage cheese, but it's not the cottage cheese that you would buy in British supermarkets. You can only find them in Lithuanian or different Eastern European shops. It's quite thick, as you can see. I put an egg in there.
Oh, great.
I'm going to put a little bit of salt. And over here, I have bicarbonate soda with sour cream.
Oh, right. Okay.
You just mix it in, and it's almost like it does some sort of chemical reaction that I know in Lithuanian, but I don't know in English. It ignites, and then it ignites. It ignites. Basically, makes it working.
Okay.
Makes it work.
Oh, I see.
Rather, if you put it in something drier, it might not be.
See, this is the... Oh, look.
There you go.
See, this is the excitement I come for. Igniting cottage cheese.
Ignite the cottage cheese.
I wouldn't get igniting cottage cheese if I just had steak and chips, would I?
Would you ever even have the cottage cheese in the first place, No,
well, I do like cottage cheese.
You like cottage cheese?
Yeah, I love cottage cheese.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is different type of cottage cheese. It's much thicker, and you can eat it either sweet or savory. Lots of dishes in here. Here, I just have plain flour with some salt in it as well. I'll add a bit more salt. And what I'm going to do, when I introduce the second message, unfortunately, I don't have 5 hours with you here because I would love to talk about the boring, non-boring. But we have to move on, and you are probably hungry now. So what I'm going to do is mix these up. Simple as that. It's one of my favorite dishes ever. I love them. People always love eating them. I grew up eating them. My grandmother used to make amazing ones.
Oh, right.
It's the one that you would buy.
Is it one of those signature dishes that you have to get right, or you're not allowed to get married? Is it one of those in the old days? Sort of. Like,
I think in Lithuania, a lot of women cook really well. They, I think because we never had takeaways in Lithuania.
No.
We never had anything that is in the shop that pre-prepared. There's no things that, like in here you can buy even, pesto sauce. We never used to have that. You just make it yourself, like that.
Yeah, well, that's great.
So you used to watch everyone cook. My dad cooked, my mom cooked, I grew up cooking since I was very little. I'm not a chef, I'm not a great chef or anything. I just
But you experiment. You don't get boring either, do you? I bet you try and do new things all the time. Oh
yeah, exactly. I mean, this meat wasn't in a recipe like that.
Hey, that's good. You see,
I'm just mixing it myself.
It's catching.
Yeah,
it's catching.
I'm slightly changing things.
Yeah, there you go. You see.
Yeah, so
that's the way to go.
Whilst I'm mixing this concoction with all the ignition stuff in there, as I spoke.
Igniting cottage cheese. I'm so excited.
Yes, I need to roll up my sleeves. The second message Paul has brought is respect yourself, which I love, which can literally go from the smallest child to the eldest person. Tell me, why have you chosen this?
Well, I think respect's a really interesting thing when it comes to creativity, because of all, our culture values things in different ways, doesn't it? And it's so interesting what we value in culture. And the people that are the most valued are people, doing financial services or lawyers and things like that. And in our culture, people who are genuine creatives tend not to be very well respected. It's almost as though people just don't trust them, or they don't get very well paid. The most original artists are the least well paid. The most original writers are the ones who get buttons for their work. The people who are the most highly paid are the ones knocking out yet another Marvel film, which is a lot less original, So what can happen in your creative life is that you start to value yourself at the same level that society values you. And if you are an original person, you're going out with them, people just think, yeah, that's great. I'll give you £5 for that amazing script. You might start believing that you're worth only £5. And I think it's very important as a creative person to constantly have a sense of your own worth, not just financial worth, but your worth in the world and the impact you're making, and kind of demand respect for it. Because if you don't, people will walk all over you. It's the easiest thing, and creative people are always getting taken advantage of, especially by non-creative people. The sort of people who end up being financiers or producers. And I've had a lot of battles with them. I've often being seen is a bit difficult sometimes because I stand up for myself. And a lot of people don't stand up for themselves, you know, and you get walked all over. And
it's a fine balance.
It's a very fine balance. You know, you obviously got to get on with people, and you can't be constantly at war and being difficult. But demanding respect means that you're more likely to get it. This is what I think, you know, and I think it's an important part of being creative is that, say you decide for fun to go off and paint something, and your friends, you tell your friends about it, and they sort of think it's hilarious. Well, you know what? They're allowed to have a little bit of a laugh, but they're not allowed to think you're ridiculous for doing it. You know, people are allowed to have to respect you. As if you went off and said I was going to run a marathon, no one would laugh at you because you're deciding to do a dance class, or you're going to write a novel, or you're going to do something creative. People often then take the mickey more than they would of anything else. If you know, if you said I'm building a caravan, no one's going to be. It's not going to be a big laugh around your friends. You know, somehow when it comes to creativity, people mostly because I think they're threatened. Because they don't know what a creative person is going to produce. And people love to know who you are and put you in a pigeonhole and control you that way, don't they? They go, you're that person.
Yeah.
I've given you these 3 things, you know. You're the person who goes on holiday to Spain. You're the person who does a great margarita. You're the person with a nice garden. What do you mean that you're the person who's suddenly an artist? That's not what I wanted.
That's not what I expected from you.
That's not what I expected. So I'm going to sort of laugh at you or kind of make you feel a bit insecure about that or whatever.
Yeah.
So all of these respect things are really important. And I think it's really important when you're starting out, especially in creativity or anything that you do. Be very careful who you share things with. I don't know if you agree with this.
I agree with that.
Because, you know, it's great to sort of share things with the world. Sometimes the world isn't the best place to put your trust in, you know.
Yeah.
And you've got to sort of look after yourself and not turn your endeavours into something that people can find, you know, amusing or ridiculous, and it gives everyone something.
Unless you're really tough, and
unless you're really tough,
and you're like, I don't care. Yeah, well, I respect myself. I believe in this.
Yeah, but then you are respecting yourself. You know,
exactly.
I think you do have to be tough. Is what I'm saying. Is even if you aren't a naturally tough person, doing and being creative involves you being tough about certain things and backing your talent. You know, you kind of owe your creativity a break. You know, you owe it a respect yourself. So you respect it and you do it as well to your ability. You don't make a laughing stock of yourself for doing it, and then you're more likely to get on further with it. Because I know that all too well. You know that people used to say to me years ago, when I was a very successful professional writer. Yeah. And I happened to be working at home at that time. Sometimes I work in an office, sometimes I work at home. Mm-hmm. And the people who had proper jobs, you know, used to laugh at me and go, they used to say, oh God, you're at home all day. How's the telly watching going? And I'd be doing a job that's very, very highly paid, you know, in a very high pressure job that's perfectly, you know, perfectly credible job, right? And they wouldn't see it because they was working at home. And then along came the pandemic. And I would be saying to them, so have you had a good day's telly watching then? Yeah. And they go, what do you mean? No, I've been working all day. I said, yes, I know. It's hard work working at home, isn't it? Yeah, so you have to stand up for yourself. And people didn't understand that and didn't respect it until, of course, they had to do it. And then, obviously, it was that had to be respected too. So creative people, and, you know, in general, whatever you're doing in life, kind of respect it, and then other people will respect it too, is what I think. I agree. And, you know, many times, in its majority from the people I don't know would come, you know, let's say I'm launching the Mindset Kitchen. Yeah. Like, well, how do you get all the people coming? Mm-hmm. You know, how it's a journey. You know, podcast is easy. You can do it from your home. I said, well, I will by, you know, working hard, making sure that people get the message, what I'm doing, you know, and what are the values and what's behind it. And then people will get passionate about it. People want to share their experience, because I want to meet these people who
have walked through life like yourself, experiencing all these things, and then we share these to the world, because otherwise how else will people know, right? So I want to talk about it constantly, and there will be people always be like, oh, come on, how,
it's just you getting, feeding wine to people sitting in your kitchen. That's all it is. And no, it's not actually.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not. And if you allowed that story to be the only story about what you're doing here, then before you know it, you start believing that too. And
I agree.
And you're preparing the ground to fail, aren't you? And I think all of these things come from a belief in them. And especially something that's new, it's the easiest thing not to believe, because again, we've got no proof of, have we?
Exactly.
You're out there doing this thing. No one's done this before.
Yeah.
So nobody has a roadmap for this.
No.
So it's easy to the easiest thing is to go, well, it's probably going to not work.
Yeah.
Because that's, again, is that boring mindset in a sense. These things are all interlinked. The people who are threatened by new things, kind of don't want new things to work, do they? Because then they were wrong.
But I also think it's if you really believe in it, and I think if it didn't work, that's fine. You tried, right?
You tried. And you really
gave yourself that chance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you respected yourself and respected the thing enough to do it properly.
Yeah.
And then you can say it didn't work. But if you sort of only do it half cocked because your friends think it's not worth it, and you sort of believe them, well, then it's never going to be any good, is it?
No.
It's like anything that you do in life, a new company or whatever. People often there will be a naysayer. There will be someone saying that's not a good idea.
There will always be.
There'll always be, because they haven't thought of it, or they're jealous, or they genuinely doubt because they don't know that it's going to be a success. But the real creators and the real entrepreneurs, and I think creativity and entrepreneurship go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurship is a very, very creative mindset as well, that you are trying something new. You're trying something that hasn't been done in exactly the same way, because who wants to do a company that everyone else, exactly like someone else's company?
Yeah. And Paul, I think whilst you're saying all these things, I think the respect yourself also comes in so many various ways. Relationships.
Yeah.
If you don't stand up for yourself and show your values and be open about them, they will be squashed, and then you will lose yourself. And the same with at work. If people, I think by being respecting to yourself, it's kind of coming back to being authentic to yourself. Because if you are yourself, you know that people will respect you, because this is how they know you. And respecting yourself is allowing you to be yourself and being brave to be yourself.
Exactly. And being brave enough to present and give your full self to the world. Yeah. Because sometimes not holding back is being boring, or holding back is a way of dealing with your own fear, and not presenting your whole self to the world, because then you can always say, well, I didn't really give it enough of a go, or I didn't believe in it, or my friends undermined me, or my partner didn't like it, or my mum thought it was ridiculous, whatever excuse you give yourself. But I think respecting yourself involves, if you're going to do something, going at it wholeheartedly, doing it the very best you can, like this pastry that you're really just rolling out very beautifully. So you're just chucking it down. It's being rolled with love and care. Look, that sprinkle is a ballet.
Look at that.
Look at that. Gorgeous.
You know what? I also want to, the respect yourself is being showing vulnerability as well, and being imperfect. And I am no way a big chef or know how to cook well or so. I'm kind of like a home chef. You will never be bored of my food, because I always come up with different dishes. But when you're telling me about respect yourself and relaying all the various scenarios, I'm thinking of myself whilst I'm doing this, because I'm showing to you that I am not perfect, and I think the perfection in itself is kind of like a thing that you will never be perfect, right? No. But it's accepting yourself and respecting yourself enough to try to become your best self, you know, to always strive to grow, learn, develop. And I think if you give yourself that chance without, worrying that now I'm just, not showing actually who true person I am, because I am right now exactly the person that I am in real life. So I'm not faking this. This is how I would be doing this if he wasn't here and the cameras went on. I'd be like, this pastry is, I need to change this. I need to get the ones with the handles.
Oh yeah,
that's what I'm thinking.
Well, so you see, you need to respect
but
yourself.
Now,
you need to respect yourself a bit more with your rolling pin.
See, it's almost like a hard pull.
Yeah.
So what I've been doing here whilst we were chatting is I put the meat in, and you can come up with bigger versions, so they can actually be much bigger. I used this bowl, that's why it's this shape. People use smaller, bigger ones. Like in Lithuania, if you go to buy one of these in a restaurant or in some sort of corner shop, sometimes they're like this size.
Enormous.
You can get really enormous, but it means it's a lot of dough, it's not much meat. I like everything to be kind of balanced, so it's enough meat and enough pastry at the same time. And then you press this with the fork so that the juice in the meat doesn't run out, and it goes into the oil and then splashes it. Sometimes it does. Hopefully it doesn't happen this time, because it'd be really loud. If it runs out, that means the oil will get contact with the juice, and it will make noise.
It won't be smoky. You won't see me anymore.
I will inform people that Paul is now behind the smoke, and show me only.
What happens. You see that?
What happens.
So right. My wife goes nuts when I cook, because I can never. I love cooking, but I can never follow a recipe without throwing in my own bits.
That's a bit like me then.
That's it. Yeah. She says, "What do you mean? Where did you get that?" She loves doing the recipe A to B to C.
Okay.
And
I'm not like that.
What are they doing in there? That's not in the recipe. I said, well, I saw them in the cupboard.
Yes.
I thought
same. Yeah, I'm the same.
So that again is to go back to that's the don't be boring part of me. So I find recipes a bit boring in a sense. I mean,
I don't know what it is. I discovered that I can't read recipes. I look at the ingredients and then kind of like, okay, I got the ingredients.
I see them as a kind of guide.
I
see a rough guide, like
rough guide.
Someone saying go to France, rather than you're staying at this hotel in room 21.
Yes.
And this is the restaurant we're having your dinner. I think of it as just get a ferry to France. The rest is up to you.
Yeah, and I don't know. Like there are people, like my partner actually. So I call him. He does the weekend cooks. So guests come over because he takes Gordon Ramsay recipe and follows it to the detail, A to Z, the timings, the temperatures. And I come in and I mess it all up. And he's like, no, when did you move? Why did you take this out? I'm like, oh, it was just cooked. No, it had 5 more minutes. I'm like, no, but I just checked. It's cooked, So I don't judge.
What's this parsley doing here? What's this parsley doing here?
Yeah. So when I cook dinner, I usually say, oh, I'm using this recipe. But, I just added a few more things in there. Changed slightly this and that. Because I guess I'm a home cook where I open the fridge and I just chuck things in, and...
You're a spontaneous person.
So spontaneous, yeah. This is going to be very spontaneous for you. Now, I've cooked this before. Actually, twice. What I get to do is to cook the meal that I'm cooking for my guests, to just try it out beforehand and see if I want to change some things. And I did.
See, this is preparation. There's nothing wrong with preparation.
Yeah, so I changed quite a few things within this. And everything is being cooked totally different than actually it says in the recipe. Yes.
I mean, it's interesting. One of the people I work with in this recently does a lot of time working with high-performing sports people, and they say it's so interesting how some sports people really, really prepare rigidly, exactly the same way every time.
Okay.
And then when they get on the pitch, anything happens. And then some people are very, very lackadaisical, but when they hit the pitch, they do it in a very sort of very, very controlled way that they always bat if they're playing cricket in exactly the same way. It says it's so interesting about people prepare for things, and where the spontaneity comes in. Sometimes the spontaneity comes in your preparation, sometimes in your execution. Like I think I'm a spontaneous in execution person.
Yeah, you know what? You can prepare as much as you like, but things will always go differently on actual day.
Yes, on the night.
And I've done some meals where I prepared and they turned out beautifully, but when I start filming, everything gone wrong. So you can prepare as much as you like, but you know, some things might not go according to plan.
No.
And it's how you take it
How
again,
you take it.
right?
Yes, the plan is always just the start, I always think.
Okay, Paul, so whilst you're waiting for these pastries to cook, I'm going to introduce, I'm going to come here, I'm going to introduce your third message.
Oh, yes.
Which is, this is a funny one. I look forward to hear your opinion. The customer is always wrong.
Yeah.
What?
Yes. Yeah. Well, you can see I've never worked in a shop.
No. What is going on? Tell me about it.
I think about that mainly in terms of creativity, because what's funny about creative people is that you know, most of the time they're doing what's inside themselves and what they think is best. But sometimes they turn around and think, oh, I've got to be commercial. I've got to look at the market and see what's going to work.
I see now.
And I've got to second guess people. I've got to second guess what people want. Not what I want. I think it's what people want. You know, so I don't want to do this novel about this. I just think it's like people said to me, you know, you should write one of those, you know, funny murder mystery things. And I said, well, I don't need them. Why would I? You know, I'm not interested. Yeah. But that's what the market wants. Yes, I'm sure it's what the market wants. But it's not who I am, and it's not what I can do. And in a sense, what I mean by that customer is always wrong is your idea of the customer is always wrong. Because
how do you know?
How do you know?
Unless you've done an extensive research.
Exactly. And the people who, you know, as a normal person or as a normal creative person, all you've got is your own instincts and your own experiences and the people that you've talked to and your imagination and the things that work for you. You're not Warner Brothers. You're not the BBC, who've got a whole arm of people out there who are researching what everybody wants. And they've got the data and they put it through AI and they've double-checked the data, and the data's many layered of, you know, and that might actually have some truth in it. Even that, I would say, is mostly nonsense, because when it comes to entertainment or creative stuff, nobody really knows what they want until they get it. Yeah. Which is why originality works, you see.
I mean, agree.
If you ask people, you know, that I remember years and years ago when interactive drama first started. Remember when people had CD-ROMs? It's probably before your age.
Yes, but I still could see some of them,
And the whole future of the media, everyone was saying, was going to be where everyone gets a choice. Okay. Yeah. And you know, your character comes to a door. Do they go in door B? Do they go in door C? Do they put a parachute on and go in door F, which is in the sky, right? Yeah. And everyone got really excited about this. And then I worked on one really, really early one, and it was sort of, oh my God, there's so many choices, you know. And you'd give people three choices, two of which were quite boring, and one was the interesting choice, you know. Yeah. And what they discovered very quickly is that 80% of people took the boring choice.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That when they are confronted with choices, most people take the boring one because they think that that's what everyone else is going to do, or that's the right thing to do. And so what you end up is that these it's a bit like the early days of these reality TV shows where all the interesting people, you know, say on I'm a devil, get me out of it, or whatever it's called, you know, in Australia. I'm a devil. I'm this week's devil, eating an ostrich bottom. Get me out of here. When they started those things, all the people who were really interesting got voted out early on. Do you remember?
Yes,
you know, and they had
I actually read something about it. Yeah,
they had to sort of cheat it in the end. Yeah, they had to change the voting thing because all the good people who were making the good telly, the people voted them out, and all the boring people were left. And so, unfortunately, the customer, in that sense, when it comes to creativity, is often really wrong. Yeah, and they don't know what they want until you give it to them. You know, so many big hits, so many of the great shows that everyone really loves, like The Office, Ricky Gervais. That happened.
I love Ricky Gervais.
Ricky Gervais. That happened. If he'd applied the normal way, that would never have happened in the BBC. I'm telling you, the hierarchy and the way that decision making is no chance.
You're saying I'm not going to get into BBC as well.
You're not. Who knows? Who knows? But Ricky Gervais arrived by a back route and as a summer replacement thing, and because it was incredibly cheap, they put it on. And they did it as a complete risk. And the guy, the controller, wasn't that bothered, and they were on holiday or something like that. Whatever, so they did it. Then it became a huge hit, and everyone's saying, "Oh, of course, we were always going to commission it." There's no way that they would have commissioned it. And most of the things that you really love happen by accident, and people have gone out there with the more radical and interesting program, like The Office was when it came out. There was nothing like it. And
who would watch? You would think, who would watch Office?
Because if you try to,
if you ask someone,
I'd actually proposed a very similar series to Channel 4.
Oh yeah,
3 years before, and I'd gone in with a couple of big stars and a big star director, and I thought, oh, we're going to be laughing here.
Yeah.
And they just said, "Oh God, who wants to watch people sitting around in an office?"
Yeah.
Is what I was told at Channel 4. No one, there's nothing funny about sitting around an office. And of course, 3 years later along came The Office, and suddenly that was the best thing that ever happened. And it's so obvious.
Yeah, I watched it as well, actually.
Yeah. So the customer is, what I mean by the customer is always wrong, is that you must trust your own gut, your own intuition.
Yes. Love that.
When it comes to creativity, because if you try to second guess people, you won't have the information to do that. And also, they will never really know what they want until they see it. Because
they don't know the full picture.
They don't know the full picture, and they want to be surprised. And the job of the artist or the creative person or the entrepreneur is to come up with something that people wouldn't have thought of. Like I suppose Twitter, or, in terms of business, lots of things. Who would have thought of that? Who would have thought of Facebook, that would have 30 years ago, if you'd have said, it's a thing where you post all your pictures and then gossip about your neighbours, and that's and it's all free, and you can stay on it all day for nothing. Yeah, and you can network and meet people, you can meet people on it, and they would say, "What? And we pay for them to upload." You wouldn't. There's no business person that would have been interested in that one. Because the customers who would have been the banks or whoever was the financiers would have been wrong in that case too. You see, I think true creativity is about backing your own intuitions and your own sense of what's going on in the world, and just going with it and backing your imagination. I love that angle because when I read it first time when you sent it to me, customer is always strong. I was like, ooh, what are we going to be covering here? But actually now I can see. Essentially is the message just to go with your gut. Give it a go, try, because you will never know. And even if people will say, well, who's going to watch this, or who's going to like your idea, just trust yourself and give it a go, because you will always find people will like the idea. Yeah. Because they when you say something to a person, I'll say, I'm going to do this, and then straight away they visualize and try to imagine what is it that you're going to do. And it's their perspective. So they will never actually see your perspective unless you out there showing it to them. Yeah. So it's a kind of a very nice angle to start the message, but actually what you're trying to say is never really think that your idea or anything you want to do in life is a reflection of what people think, isn't it? Yeah, what they think now. Because your job, I think, with new stuff is to take people to places that they're not at. Because if it's just about where they're at now, well, they don't need you, do they? Because they're already there. Yeah. So, the job of the new thinker and the entrepreneur is to be challenging. Is not to care what the customer thinks, and just set your stall out and let them come. To create a new flavour, to create a new thing, to create a new excitement, a new paradigm, a new place. Or wherever it is, that's your job. That's your only job in a way, because otherwise you just get on the commuter train and go and work in a big company that wants you to not come out with original things, just do what they did yesterday. Yeah.
Love that. Thank you so much for sharing this, Paul.
They're my three. They're my three. Well, I have many others.
Many others, but you only allowed 3.
Yeah, 3 is plenty.
You had to choose wisely. Thank you so much for sharing. I really enjoyed this, and I love the angle that you are coming from your creativity, which I think we all are creative, right? And we all. Oh, I can hear the pastry slightly opening. We all are creative, and we all should be going with our gut and feeling our, intuitive powers that we all been given to explore the world.
Yeah. And creativity is not just about producing novels and plays and things like that.
No.
It's about the creativity of your relationship, the creativity of your friendships, the creativity of the way that you bring up your children, the creativity of the way you interact with your parents. All of these things are a creative task, aren't they?
Exactly.
Creativity is being human at your best, to me.
Is being human and pulling out all the best qualities of human, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and being yourself.
Yeah.
So, Paul, before I give you some pastries, we're cooling down. I didn't want to burn you because if you bite straight away, it's dangerous. So I was just trying to avoid, do all the health and safety check, cooling down. Can you tell me what you're doing right now?
Well, I'm as far as creativity goes, I'm writing a play, finishing a play, which is good fun, and I'm also in starting a new thing which I call Find Your Funny, and they're master classes at the Comedy Store in London.
I want to come desperately. I missed the previous one.
For kind of different groups of people.
Yeah.
And one group is professional speakers and leaders and people who have to speak for a living.
Yeah.
That's one group. And then I'm also going to be doing a version of that for people who want to start just a creative projects, who want to creatively write and maybe do novels or plays and things. And so I'll have a fun morning at the Comedy Store, exploring what a comedy project looks like, what comedy feels like, what it sounds like, what's in you, how you could start moving forward with it. So it's very exciting. We've done a kind of a trial version one Saturday, which was great, and everybody really, really loved it, and I enjoyed it enormously. So I'm looking forward to doing more of those and more helping lovely, intelligent people find their best selves when they're speaking, and also just I don't know what's next as well, which is as well as that, which is what exciting, I love. I love having an open book and thinking, well, I'm open for the next experience. I think that's great.
Amazing.
So it's all good.
Well, okay. So what I'm going to do is I've cooked lovely chibureke for.
What are they called again?
Chibureke.
Chibureke. Lovely. Chibureke.
I hope Paul enjoys them. I'm going
They look fantastic.
So I think this is the one that has been cooked previous. So grab that first one because it's less hot.
Okay. And you eat it you hold on to it like this.
So you usually people eat from the front, so that from the top. So hold it other way. Other way. There you go. And then bite at the top. No, by the top.
Oh, I see.
This way. There you go.
Right. Okay, here we go.
Go for it. Because the idea is when you put the meat in, the juice within pastry holds. So you want the juice to be staying there, not escaping. And it could get, quite hot. So be careful. But do let me know. Give me a mark. Give me a score.
This is 10.
10.
This is 10. Look at that.
Yes,
this is delicious. My goodness.
Thank you so much. I'm so pleased you like it.
Oh, I do.
You see, there are in Britain, they have lots of different pastries. And, Cornish pasty. What else?
Pasty.
Oh, I say pasty because it looks so pasty.
Yeah, they can do. Pasty.
Yeah, it's my pronunciation.
Yeah. But these are lovely.
Thank you.
Really nice.
I'm glad you're enjoying. On that note, I'm nearly finishing. I've got a couple more to cook, and I'll do like a little mini version, the imperfect version of the pastries, because I grew up in a home where we don't waste anything.
See, there you are. You're improvising.
I'm improvising. Look at that perfection. It's actually perfect size. And no, it's not perfect because I've made a hole, which means
Do you have a diminutive in Lithuanian? Do you use like they have in Russia? Don't they? What's little pastry?
We have our dictionary. I don't know where the flies. Dictionary is really rich, and we have cute little things. So my name would be Diana, Dianuki, Dianeli, Dianite.
Dianite.
Yeah.
So these are
little delicious little things. In England, in English you can't say that. It's hard to expect, to pronounce and change the word. Like in Lithuanian, we have different endings of the word that emphasizes a certain point.
Its size.
Yeah, its size, its taste. Paul, thank you so much for being here. Hopefully you enjoyed as much as I did having Paul over and sharing your creative side, your experience. Your messages were wonderful. It opened up quite a few areas that I would have loved to continue and discuss. But unfortunately, we have to finish here.
It's been great.
We have to finish here so we can eat all the pastries as well. Thank you so much for watching. I'll put all the details on my website, www.mindsetkitchen.co.uk. Will be details of Paul if you would like to get in touch and discuss any possibilities of working with Paul. He's amazing. So thank you so much. And thank you for watching, everyone. And have a good day.
Cheers.